Hi, I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and it's my pleasure to be an instructor for Cabrillo College's journalism program. I teach a course in broadcast writing, and my students are going to present a panel discussion today about an important topic, immigration. Post-election, there's a lot going on in our community. There are a lot of people afraid of being deported. This is an issue that strikes close to home. And please make welcome Cullen Ridgway, your moderator for this panel discussion.
Hi, and welcome to CTV. We are here today representing Cabrillo College's Intro to Broadcast Media class. Today our topic is immigration in our local community. According to the Santa Cruz Sentinel, Santa Cruz County has an estimated population of 8.2% undocumented immigrants, which adds up to approximately 21,000 people. What are their rights? How are they supposed to make a living? Does it seem backwards that a country founded by immigrants looking for a better life should obstruct future immigrants from reaching that same enlightenment? And of course, now that Trump is president-elect, what does that mean for the immigrants living here and trying to become part of our community? I have with me today Aubrey, Magggy, Karla, Jesse, and Miguel, and we're here to talk about these issues. We're going to start with a clip of Not My President, Mr. Donald Trump.
Are you ready? We will build a great wall along the southern border. And Mexico, you know that, will work with us. I really believe it. Mexico will work with us. I absolutely believe it. And especially after meeting with their wonderful, wonderful president today, I really believe they want to solve this problem along with us, and I'm sure they will. Number two, we are going to end catch and release. We catch them? Oh, go ahead. We catch them? Go ahead. Under my administration, anyone who illegally crosses the border will be detained until they are removed out of our country and back to the country from which they came. Number three, this is the one I think it's so great. It's hard to believe people don't even talk about it. Zero tolerance for criminal aliens. Zero.
Interesting. And now we can compare that to a clip of Hillary Clinton. Here we go.
We can't wait any longer for a path to full and equal citizenship. Now, this is where I differ with everybody on the Republican side. Make no mistakes. Today, not a single Republican candidate, announced or potential, is clearly and consistently supporting a path to citizenship. Not one. When they talk about legal status, that is code for second-class status. So I will fight for comprehensive immigration reform and a path to citizenship for you and for your families across our country. I will fight to stop partisan attacks on the executive actions that would put dreamers, including those with us today, at risk of deportation. And if Congress continues to refuse to act as president, I would do everything possible under the law to go even further.
Aubrey, notice how Hillary Clinton's mind is more open and she's looking for better paths for the immigrants in our country, whereas Donald Trump is closed off and not thinking of better solutions. How would you compare the viewpoints of these two president-elects?
Well, we can definitely see that President-elect Trump has a much more extreme policy in mind. We'll see how that works out in his actual time as president. But we have to really think, why did Republicans turn out in such large numbers with this anti-immigration policy. And you really have to look at the economics of the situation. Here in California, we have a very different situation. Most of the, while only 1% of wage earners work in agriculture, it's still a huge industry, massive export, really important to our local economy, and a lot of those workers are either documented or undocumented immigrants. And these kinds of immigrants do put pressure on low wage earners, especially about 50% of immigrant households do use some form of welfare, which is significantly more than native households. So you can definitely see in lower income areas, they are putting a lot of pressure on native populations, which might create some amount of resentment. Whether this is rational, I'm not entirely sure, but you can definitely see that the economics of the situation definitely doesn't look good for low-wage native populations when there is an immigration influx.
Okay, so you mentioned that the immigrants were using our welfare programs. What do you think, any of you, would be a solution to that problem? Do you think that maybe including the immigrants and giving them a route to be citizens might solve that problem, or do you think that it's beyond that?
I don't think so. Because I mean
Okay, Maggie, do you have anything to say about this, or Karla? I'm sorry.
I mean, I feel like if I am looking at like the different viewpoints, I feel like to immigrants, Donald Trump represented a lot of fear, and Hillary did represent a lot of hope for them. I feel like there's a lot of immigrants that are very hardworking and would contribute to the U.S. and do contribute to the U.S. even though some people like Donald Trump say that they don't.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they give immigrants this representation that they're just here to be like lazy and to get money and stuff like that. But I feel like part of it is not true at all. And I don't know. I mean, I know there is different viewpoints because there are people, immigrants or not immigrants. There are people that are criminals, and there's people that do things that they shouldn't. But that's just because they're immigrants doesn't mean they're more likely to do that. So.
I agree with Karla because my dad, he came over from Mexico, and his goal when he got here, he said he wanted to work here and to make a better life for himself. And like you said, they're all mostly hardworking, and they're not here to cause any trouble, like Donald Trump is saying. They're here to make a better life for themselves.
Yeah, and like any other community, we have tons of criminals too. Just like any immigrants coming from anywhere, there could be criminals in the bunch, and that's just the way the world works. What do you think are the options for immigrants who are now facing deportation?
I think it's really scary because right now a lot of dreamers, which is young immigrants that have been here for a while, they're really scared right now because they don't know what's going to happen with the new presidential elect. I think those people are really hardworking, and they're children of immigrants that have come here to give their kids a better life. I feel like they're holding on to like the last bit of hope that they have that Donald Trump will be sensitive to them, that he'll actually try and give them something to work with, because recently he did an interview where he talked about the issues that his campaign has been along with, and they talked about the building of the wall and deportation, and he recently changed his mind to only deporting criminals. He recently said that he was going to focus on getting criminals and drug dealers and deport them, and then see what happens with all of the other people. So I feel like right now a lot of dreamers are holding on to that hope right now.
Okay, and can you tell us more about the DREAM Act?
So the DREAM Act, it stands for Development, Relief, and Education of Alien Minors Act. So I went on the website, and the purpose of it, according to the website, is to help individuals who meet certain requirements have an opportunity to enlist in the military and go to college and have a path to citizenship, which they otherwise would not have without this legislation, which gives immigrants the chance to go to school and better themselves, to be able to contribute to the U.S. It's people that have been here their whole lives. It's basically like they're Americans. It's basically like they're citizens. They grew up here. This is all they know. And it's a way for them to contribute to the U.S. It's a way for them to get some rights and be able to work and be able to have a chance and not be scared of deportation and stuff like that. Some of the requirements are to be in the U.S. before being 16. They have to be here 5 years consecutively, have graduated from high school, and at the time for applying, they have to be between the age of 12 to 35. And
Okay.
I feel like it's a really good act, and I hope that Donald Trump doesn't take that away from people because it's really scary.
Jesse, do you have anything?
It's just unfair the way we treat them, because honestly they help our agriculture and our other industries. And bear in mind we were all founded by immigrants too.
It's a very good point. I agree with that.
Gotta jump in here, just as the devil's advocate here. When we put up the Statue of Liberty, when we really did take in the tired, the hungry, the poor, we were a very different nation. This was before the progressive era, before a lot of our major political institutions and progressive programs were enacted. Today, it's less of a freedom of opportunity and a lot more expensive to take in immigrants, especially since a majority of immigrants are lower income, putting pressure on those programs we have to relieve lower income people, including immigrants. There are a lot of pressures put on them. Definitely.
I agree, but at the same time, I feel like it was like back then, immigrants would come in and just take agricultural jobs, and nowadays they've raised their kids to better themselves, and so their kids are striving to get a lot of education, to get hard work. And I'm not saying like citizens don't work as hard, but it's not as easy to get a job and do certain things now because immigrants are getting more education. They're trying to do better than what their parents did. They're trying to make their parents proud, and so they strive a lot more to get certain things, and I feel like it makes it harder for people to get jobs, and that's why there's so many people nowadays saying that, oh, they're taking our jobs, they're like taking over our country. You know what I mean?
But I mean, globalization and the transformation of a lot of our states into what we now call the Rust Belt has had a definite impact on our country, not just for native citizens, but immigrants as well. And I feel like there's a really strong sentiment, post-recession, that any kind of threat to low-wage earners is something that we should be really careful of. That's, the more rational way to put that sentiment that I believe got President-elect Trump elected. Definitely, globalization is a huge factor now. As jobs go overseas, it's harder and harder to make this country more welcoming for those coming from overseas.
So your argument is that since jobs are leaving in the first place, it's hard for us to provide jobs, especially with new people coming into the country.
Mm-hmm. Especially since we have a very different perspective as Californians. We almost allow immigration so that we can, hold down food prices, not just for our country, but as a major exporter of food products, rice, alfalfa, all kinds of different agricultural products. California benefits immensely from a lot of low-income immigrants, which I think is not only unfair for low income natives, but for the immigrants themselves who are kind of being taken advantage of by this system.
Does anyone have something to say about that? Okay, that brings me to my next question, and that is, if we had less undocumented immigrants in our country, whether or not we deport them or make them documented, what would be the effects on our agriculture industry?
It took a huge hit. It's kind of ironic that we deport them and we don't want to do their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And they already make up most of the industry, so it's going to take a huge financial hit.
Yeah, that's for sure. Magggy, you had us interview with Cecilia, and she talked about working in the fields. Have you talked to her about that? Past that, do you know anything about the quality of work or?
No, but I have worked on the fields, like 2 summers ago, and I personally know how it feels to work in the fields. I mean, you have to work from 7 in the morning, and then you get a break like 30 minutes, and then from there you go back until you've finished.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's hard. It is really hard.
Yeah.
I actually have too, and I have massive respect for those people. I feel like it's especially when like in the morning it's super cold, in the afternoon it's super hot, and then the fact that they don't stop at all, like they only stop for their breaks, and it's just continuous, and it's really hard work. And I feel like not enough respect is given to those people because they work really, really hard.
Yeah, that's
And
for sure.
sometimes you get just one break, and that's it.
Jesse, you mentioned that most people don't actually want those jobs, and I think that's a really valid point. Miguel, do you know anything? Do you think many Americans, citizens, would want to take the jobs working in the fields that we pay people so lowly?
To be honest, I don't think so. Immigrants, they have no choice because they have no education, or they really don't have a choice, and that's the first place they go to earn money to survive, pretty much.
Yeah.
And where I live in Florida, it's mostly like wine and like lettuce or something, and they're literally in my backyard. They wake up like at 3 in the morning, and they're already working, and by the time I come home from work, they're barely leaving.
Mhm.
It's like 7 in the afternoon. So I could imagine that, like you said, they're really hard working, and I give them credit for doing all that.
A lot of people have stories about friends and family members who have worked in the fields, and a lot of them have stories about them being deported at their work. We have a clip from Cecilia Rocha, an employee at Cabrillo College's EOPS program, and she had a very powerful story, and we'll cut to her clip now.
The struggle to find jobs and not being able to be free. I mean, they were always, they're like caged because you would go out, and I remember one time I went to, in summers, sometimes we used to go with my parents to the fields to help them during the summer when we were not in school. And I remember one day, particularly one day, the immigration trucks came into the field. And I saw, it's like, we were little. I must have been like, maybe 12, around there. And I remember that the trucks came in through the entrance of the road, and you could see them coming this way, and all the people running this way. And then the trucks came this way because, they were driving, so they were fast, they were going fast this way. And then you saw the people shifting this way. But as a little girl, it's like people going this and not knowing what was happening, going this way, and then coming this way, and then they scatter all over the place.
That's great.
It was like, what just happened?
So like all the workers in the whole field are just scattering.
The most of them, yeah. And some were captured, and it was very interesting that there was another field next to where we were working, and it was like big grass there, and some people just threw themselves there. And those were the ones that were able to escape because they were not looking there. They were just going for the people that were running. And a lot of people were captured that day. So it was kind of sad.
And
I can never forget that.
So that is a pretty scary story, and you can see that she says, and she's watching this as a young child, and she says in the end that it's sad, and it is. What do you think of this situation? How wrong is it? How right is it?
I think that's pretty scary. I feel like there's a lot of little kids recently, with Donald Trump being elected, that are really scared of their families being deported. My little cousin, actually, in the morning when we told him that Donald Trump was elected, cried his eyes out because he was so terrified that someone was going to come and take his mom. And it was really heartbreaking because the fact that, like, these little kids, he's in 3rd grade, are terrified of their president is just really scary. And I feel like I haven't, luckily I haven't had anyone in my family being deported, but it's terrifying to think of, just in general.
Yeah.
The ICE, which is the the agents who would have been part of this story, have become the largest section of Homeland Security, and I think that, as a society, we're definitely scapegoating with a large sector of people. Homeland Security being a major part of the policy that happened after 9/11. Immigration has definitely taken, or immigrants have definitely taken the role of scapegoat in our society, and it's definitely unfair and pretty scary.
I think that this goes beyond a money game in our country. I think that money, I mean, you could argue this for days, is kind of an abstract concept. And beyond money, we have to look at the impact that we're having. Where are these people supposed to go? What happens to the kids like Cecilia, who is at risk of her family being deported like every day when they go to work? Can you imagine being scared that your parents won't come back? What do you, beyond money and politics, what do you think are the moral issues behind this?
I think it's terrifying. I feel like, especially dreamers that are scared of being deported, this country's all they've known. So the fact that they'd be deported and be sent back to a completely different country that they don't remember, it's terrifying. Speaking, like, for me, I have family in Mexico. For me, it's not as scary, but at the same time, it's like, this country's all I've known. This country's where I've grown up. It's where I've contributed to my community, to my society, and the fact that I can, like, at any moment just be taken from everything that I've worked so hard to have is just terrifying.
Yeah.
Being less altruistic, I mean, having a large sector of your workers, being deported at any moment is definitely economically destabilizing. I read one economic study that called immigration $1 trillion being left on the pavement in the long term. As much as there are short-term costs, and a lot of people who could definitely be considered injured by immigration, in the long term, the economic benefits from immigration in economic stability and growth are immense.
Okay. Well, I think every last American, citizen or not, whether you're born in this country or not, is an immigrant. I mean, the Irish and Italians came here looking for a better life. The English came here, the first ships, colonials, looking for a better life. Archaeologists have even traced some Native American populations back to Asia, and they came across the land bridge, which is huge. Everyone is an immigrant to this country. Do you think that holding back and keeping new immigrants out of this country kind of goes against everything? And I know that you've touched on this already, Aubrey, but goes against everything that our country stands for already and has been built upon. Okay, so what I'm saying is that, like, a country founded by immigrants, who are we to turn around and tell immigrants no? Like, how do you feel about us claiming this land as our own and telling people that they can't come here for a better life? When do we turn around and look back and see ourselves all those, hundreds of years ago, looking for this better life? Like, how do you feel about? Are you following me?
Yes. I think that we deserve the right to be here. Like, basically undocumented people, because like she said before, Latinos came here to have a better life for their kids, and I mean, to be honest, Latinos, they could you can see them in the streets selling flowers. I mean, they do. They work hard. I mean, they don't stay home or do anything. I mean, they go outside, they work, and yeah.
It is, though, interesting to look at our North American neighbor, Canada. While being in kind of the same situation, they didn't have, the tired, the hungry, the willing to work hard as part of their rhetoric. And as a result, their immigration process makes ours look easy. 10 years is usually how long it takes to just become an immigrant worker in that society as part of their application process.
I feel like if we go back to what Maggie's saying, I feel like she's right. Not just Latinos, like Muslims, everyone that comes here, and as long as you're working hard, you're contributing to this country, I feel like there should be no reason for anyone to tell you that this isn't your home, that you shouldn't be here in any way. I feel like as long as everyone's working hard and helping this country become better, you have a right to be here.
Yeah, as long as we're making money, paying taxes, and I mean the biggest thing for our economy is that we're buying things, and if you're living in this country, you're buying things. So saying that someone's a problem because we won't give them legal paperwork in this country, and then blaming them for the problem, I think that's wrong. And I think that it can be a huge economic boost for us to have new people in this country, new people contributing and buying in our country, especially since low-income communities are often huge. They buy a lot. I mean, my mom grew up with very little money, or now has very little money. I'm not going to go into her story, but she's buying things left and right whenever she has money because she's not used to it. And I think that's big. That as long as you're here contributing to society, that you should be allowed here. Okay, so that's about all the time we have today. Thank you, Aubrey, Magggy, Karla, Jesse, and Miguel for coming out. This has been Cabrillo College's Intro to Broadcast Media class in the Journalism Department. Thank you for seeing us tonight, and goodbye.